Hello again. Welcome to card number 2 of our Floral Essence kit card. This is the second card and I've shown you here everything I'm using. I've got my stamp set. I've used the smaller of the flowers. I've used that same little centre that we used for card number 1. And this time I've used this sentiment. And I've already got them all mounted on my blocks. Move those ones out of the way. For my adhesives, I've used a liquid glue, I've used my glue dots, and I've used Stampin' Dimensionals. For my inks, I've got Memento Black, Crushed Curry, and Blackberry Bliss. But you can make these flowers in any colour you want to. I've just chosen Blackberry Bliss, but here, look, I have done them with some different colours. This is Rococo Rose and Real Red, Cherry Cobbler, and this was Blackberry Bliss as well. So the flowers are going to look lovely, whatever your colour you choose, just whatever inks you've got at home. Now, the pack that you will get will look like this. And just the same as the first card, all your supplies are in here for all 4 cards that you're going to make in this design. You will notice that for the ribbons, you have 2 in the green and 2 in the white. Okay, and let's show you how we make these. My first card I made, it had the green ribbon. So the card I'm making now will have the white ribbon. And what you need to do is to separate your pack so that for each of your cards you've got the embossed flowered piece, you've got a white circle. I'm not going to use the green ribbon, I'm going to use the white one. So there's my white ribbon. You've got 3 little green sprigs already cut out. And then you've got a long piece of card that says Stampin' Scrap. And this, you will have some left. Keep it for one of the other cards if you need it, or for making more cards of your own. I gave you plenty just in case you wanted to experiment with colours and see which of the colours worked best for you. Okay, so you will also have a base card. Now, let me see where I just hid that. I took it out a second ago and then, here we go. Let's take one out of here. Now this time your base card is cut differently. It's cut on the long side. It's still got that score line here with the dint that goes in, so you know that that's going to be your front. But this card, instead of opening this way, it will open top and bottom. Okay. You will also have your envelopes, of course. And if you want to decorate these, you could stamp one of the flowers in the corner. You could stamp flowers on the back. Lots of different things that you could do with them. Okay, so let me move my little pieces over. And let's start. So what I'm going to do is get my base ready. And I know that this embossed piece, or this flowery piece of card, is going to go just on the base card here. So I'm going to use my liquid glue. I'm just going to put a little bit over. When you use this kind of glue, don't use big splodges, because sometimes it can make the card warp, or it goes a bit bendy, or it can get a bit wet. I always just scribble over with a tiny bit of glue. You can always add a bit more, but it's a bit tricky to take some off. Okay, and then I'm just going to attach this to the front, and you'll see that there's a little border all the way around. And even though it's white on white, you can see where that border is. Okay, now let's do some stamping. I'm just going to find out where my glue lid rolled to. There we go. So the first thing I started stamping were my flowers. And as I say, I was just experimenting with which colours I liked. And I went with the Blackberry Bliss. This one here was Rich Razzleberry. But I know that you don't all have all of the colours, so just choose whichever ones you like. And then I cut this just off the bottom to show you. If you want your flowers to be different colours, what you can do is you stamp once, and that's it stamped once, and then I inked it up again and I stamped once here, and without inking it up again, what I did was just stamp again with the same block and the same stamp on there. I didn't clean it in between, I just added my ink on, stamped it once, stamped it twice, and you see how you get a lighter colour? You could even stamp it 3 and 4 times and it gets lighter each time. So if you don't want them all the same colour but you've only got one colour ink, do that. Stamp once, stamp a second time, and it's called either second generation stamping or stamping off. So that's what I've done. And then I used this little centre and I used my crushed curry, just the same as we did for the first stamp, for the first card. And here were my stamps. That's just how I stamped them, and I've already cut 2 of them out. Now we don't have a die for this, and because there's only a punch that goes with this set, it doesn't cut this flower out. So it's a really easy one just to cut. And all I do is leave a little tiny white border. And I use that little border so that if I'm cutting and it's not a brilliant cut, if it's a bit wobbly, some's a bit thick and some's a bit thin, you can't tell. If you cut right up to the edge and you cut a little bit out of the flower, sometimes you can tell. So I always just leave this little tiny white edge. Okay, so there's our 3 flowers. The only other stamping we've got to do for this card is the sentiment here, and it's going to stamp on your circle. You need your memento tuxedo black and your little image or your sentiment, and then you're just going to stamp straight on. Now what I didn't say in the last video was because these are photopolymer, there isn't any cushioning on them. So when you stamp, sometimes the surface can be a bit hard. On my table, I've got a large cushion pad, and that helps a little bit. You can get a smaller cushion pad and you can stamp on it. If you don't have a cushion pad, what I used to use was an old telephone directory or even a catalogue, and you just stamp on there, and that way you get just a little bit of cushioning because the cushioning's here in this pad. Okay, let's move that out of the way. I'm just going to clean that, and that's all of the stamping we need to do for this one. Okay, so we're ready to assemble. Now, on this one, I have put this on dimensionals just to raise it up a little bit. If you want to have it just flat, you can glue it down just flat. Sometimes I like just that little extra bit of dimension, and so you get some nice layers. And I'm just putting it off to the right hand side a little bit. So I've got more space at this left hand side to put the flowers. And what I did was, with my first flower, I put just a little bit of glue at the bottom, and I just started that on my circle. Then I put here I'd stamped a bigger one. Do you know, I forgot to do the stamping the bigger one. Didn't even get that stamp out. Sorry. I was thinking I'd done all 3 the same size and I didn't. But if you wanted to, you can. So let me get my Blackberry Bliss again. It would work equally well with 3 small ones. Okay, let's just quickly clean that. Okay, and pop that one away. And then I just need my crushed curry. Get that little centre again. I'm going to pop that right in the centre there. And I'm going to get my scissors. going to cut that out. Let's just cut it off roughly to start with. And then I'm going to quickly just cut round. I find also when I'm cutting, I don't open and close the scissors an awful lot. What I do with my left hand, I sort of move the card round a bit. And I find that makes it just a little bit easier. Then I don't have to open and close my scissors too much. And you get a nice, easy way to cut. Now you can see I never take long to do cutting out. I don't do precision work on them. Okay, let's go back to our card. So this one we're going to glue just here on the left. So I'm only going to put glue on this bottom part. You don't need much. Okay, I'm just going to put that down there like that. Okay. And then the next one, I'm going to glue on flat. You could put on a dimension if you wanted. I'm going to glue it on flat though, but I just want to put a couple of these little sprigs behind it. So I'm going to put a little bit of glue on there. And I know I just want it to come down off the circle a little bit. And I'm going to use this just to check where it needs to be and if it's in the right place. Yeah. And then I'm going to pop this one in as well before I glue that third flower down. And I just want that one to come off a little bit. I tuck it under that flower a tiny bit. Okay, and then I'm going to glue this one on. And I'm just going to make sure that I cover up the edges or the bottom of this little die cut, of this punch cut I mean. This is actually a sprig punch, it's a separate punch from this set, but I think it looks nice with this. But you could equally use the flowers that are, the leaves that are in here. You could stamp these and cut them out and put them behind if you prefer them to the little sprigs that I've put in. Okay, now this one, I'm just going to put a little bit of glue at the bottom because I'm going to put it behind here. Just hold it down for a second, and then as it sort of sticks, it will raise up, and so it's, you know, that gives you that little dimension again. Okay. Now, last of all, we've got our little pre-made bows, and because I've already made one with the green, I'm going to use the white seam binding next. This seam binding can be a little bit staticky, so sometimes it sticks to your fingers a bit. And then I'm going to use my glue dots. I'm going to stick it on there. And the glue dot is bigger than the little knot on the bow. So I'm just going to fold it in a bit so it's not showing. Now, if you don't have glue dots, you can use your liquid glue just the same. Don't use too much, because if sometimes on the ribbons, if you get a lot of wet glue, they will start to bleed a little bit. Okay. There we are. So that's the instructions for the second card. If you're not sure about anything, you know, as always, just let me know, and I can go over and explain a little bit more to you. On your envelope, if you wanted, you could stamp some of the flowers. If you have extra ones that you've cut out like this, let me just find an envelope. All your envelopes are in your packets as well. If it isn't going through the mail, you could always attach it onto your envelope, or you could do the bigger one. You could just stamp it, and you could do the same inside. You could just stamp a flower. You could add another one of your little sentiments. Lots of different ways to dress them up. Okay, I will be back very soon with the third card for you. See you all again soon.